Hello, everyone who's here with us and people who are watching on the replay. Um, we're so glad that you're here, that you made it. Um, and we're all here for a purpose of learning Ibn Arabi's cosmology and contemplation, um, which is something that I think a lot of us may have in common as far as using these techniques to go deeper within ourselves and learn more about ourselves. And we have the great pleasure to have this presentation led by Latifa Shahab, who we met over, I think if I remember correctly, um, Antoine had wrote an article about astrology and in light of mysticism, and he connected Vedic astrology and used some of Sufi poetry in order to connect it all together. And I think Latifa read that article and reached out. And ever since, we've just been getting on calls, learning more about each other. And it's just been really a treat to get to know Latifa. Such a beautiful light and a beautiful soul, and I've learned a lot from our encounters. So I'm deeply grateful that you can come here and present the study that you've been doing for some years now. Um, with with that said, there's just to give a proper introduction of Latifa, she became interested in Sufism at the age of 28 after a significant dream and the synchronistic events that happened and followed it. She's been a member of the Inayatiyya Sufi order since then and have benefited from the teachings and wisdom and guidance from many teachers in the Inayatiyya order. For the last 15 years, she's been a member of the Inayatiyya UK leadership community, and she has a particular interest in the multi-faith ethos of the Inayatiyya and how and have been one of the leaders of the UK Inayatiyya Zirat concentration, which she will speak a little bit more about in the presentation. Professionally, she's a state registered nurse. She traveled and worked as a nurse in Denmark, Holland, and Saudi Arabia, as well as different parts of the UK. At various points in her career, she specialized in heart and chest medicine, health visiting, which is caring for families in community after the birth of a child and or who have children under 5 years old. During the last few years before retiring, she um, she was a mental health nurse specializing in care for older adults and went on to train as an anthroposophical art therapist, which I don't know if I even pronounced that.
That's close enough.
Yeah, which is under Rudolf Steiner. I guess it's a school under him. Currently, she's a trustee of the local branch of the national charity called the University of the Third Age. This university, which is also known as U3A, organizes social and educational interest groups for retired people. She has interest in table tennis, badminton, creative writing, and recent interest in astronomy. For the last 4 years, she has facilitated a small group of Sufis from various countries who have met regularly online to explore possibilities in and feedback their experiences of Moon Mansion Contemplation, which we'll be learning more about today. So I'm really excited to welcome you in, Latifa. Um, And I ask, please, everybody to be muted. If you have any questions, we will have a question and answer later on after the presentation. So if you have any questions that come up, write them down or put them in the chat and we'll circle back to them after the presentation, God willing. Latifa, welcome. Thank you so much.
Mm. Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here with you all. It's a really lovely group. I've been to your group a couple of times. And many thanks, everyone, for joining the presentation. Um, there's much to say, and this can only be an overview. Um, so I'll just tell you briefly before I go into a PowerPoint presentation what I'll try to get to cover. So I'll give an introduction to invocation of divine names as a practice, just in case anybody's not come across that before. Give a little of a background and foundation of the contemplation practice, and explain exactly what a moon mansion is. And I'll say something about the premise that we work with and some of the contemplation methods that we've engaged in. And then finally, I'll say something of the kinds of experience that those engaged in the practice have had. So I've used the PowerPoint because I want to use some diagrams. So I hope that will be okay. I'll just go into the PowerPoint now, and I'm also using sound, so I'm clicking the sound button here.
Amazing.
And I'm just going to extend the screen if I can. This is not exactly my forte, so excuse me if I just take a minute to get things sorted on the screen. Yes, so Islamic cosmology and ontology of Ibn Arabi in the context of Moon Mansion Contemplation. So let's just take a little bit of a look at cosmology, what we mean by that. This, of course, is scientific. We've probably seen this before, but it's the current view of the universe from a scientific point of view, Big Bang, and 13.7 million years ago to the present day, which is here at the end of this kind of cone or bell here. So I'm no academic strength in cosmology per se, but apparently at the very beginning, the universe was simple. There was only about three different elements: hydrogen, helium, and a small amount of lithium. And apparently, after the Big Bang, it was dark. No, photons couldn't travel. So there's about 30,000 years of darkness before light. And it's an ever-growing field. As we know, new technology constantly allows more knowledge to become available. And what constitutes reality, even at the quantum level, or I could say non-material level, as being investigated. So then ontology, study of being. I recently came across this, which is quite wonderful. It was first photographed in 2016, but apparently there's a brilliant flash of light when an ovum, a human egg, or presumably any mammal, is at the moment of fertilization. So, what a lovely image for the beginning of the microcosmic universe, the start of the microcosm that we each are. And then cosmology and religion. So most religions have revered prophets or other very gifted intuitives and mystics who've tuned into subtle levels of existence and have been seen the sacredness and order in the normally unseen world. Hindu religion, for example, has a cosmology that has room for multiple ages and multiple universes even. And the cosmology of the Bible, the Christian Bible, the Genesis at the beginning says the earth was formless and empty, and darkness was over the face of the deep. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Cosmologies differ in differing religions, not entirely interchangeable, but have some common elements like naming different subtle levels of being. So, in Ibn Arabi's Islamic cosmology, emotions like compassion and love play a part. And we can't yet measure frequency of emotion in the cosmos scientifically, as far as I know, anyway. And perhaps that's why it's not part of scientific cosmology yet, I would say. The sacredness of creation and love in and of nature are very evident to some, though. And so Islamic cosmology, we've got in cosmology of Islam, the pen, the tablet, universal nature, and universal matter. And for Ibn Arabi, in the Moon Mansion work that he's attributed to these, he attributes the pen to the first Moon Mansion, the tablet to the second, universal nature to the third, and moon to the fourth Moon Mansion. So, for those that are not aware of this, the pen is said to be the first intellect. It writes on the tablet, which is the universal soul. And then you have the universal nature, which is the basic sort of building blocks. But here it's heat, dry, cold, moist. And they are the building blocks of the elements of fire, etc., and air and earth and water. Each of those elements are composed of two of those basic building blocks. And then universal matter. So, who was? I should say what I meant to point out here is that here is the states of the angels ecstatic with love, and that's why I mentioned the love as part of the cosmology. So who was Ibn Arabi? So he's a very highly revered in Islam, and he's known as the Sheikh al-Akbar, the greatest Sheikh. He's a master at describing the many paths to God and nuances of experience that various people on the path may have. And he was born in 1165. He's a mystic, a poet, a philosopher, a Sunni scholar, and he was from Andalusia. He travelled widely, and was extremely influential within Islamic thought, and especially within Sufism. He's known explicitly for delineating the concept of wadat al-wujud, unity of being. He was a prolific writer. He wrote 850 works that were attributed to him, at least. And the largest of those is 10,000 pages of the Futuhat al-Makkiyya. That's the revelations at Mecca. And Moon Mansion Contemplation is founded in his writings in chapter 198 of the Futuhat. And that's the chapter entitled Breath. So that's the fundamental breadth of creation. And he attributes a divine name to each moon mansion. An awareness of the qualities of just 28 of the classical 99 divine names is really quite fundamental to Moon Mansion contemplation. So before I go any further, I'll just say a little about the place of divine names as I understand it in Sufi practice. So the primary source of Islamic divine names is the Quran. And most scholars agree that 99 divine names in Islam is a symbol for an infinite number. The Prophet Muhammad spoke of the great benefit to be received by reciting and contemplating the divine names. There are many books available that help those who contemplate the names. And the one I use most and love is The Physicians of the Heart. So in the Physicians of the Heart, they describe divine names by saying that they are, quote, millennium-old ways of opening the heart. So perhaps this phrase is referring also to divine names that have been associated with divinity throughout time and culture. We know recitation, contemplation of divine names and attributes has been practiced in many religions, like the mantras of Hinduism, chanting Hare Krishna, and in the Christian tradition, the Lord's Prayer has the line, "Hallowed be thy name." Then we have the divine names revealed in the Quran, and this was 610 to 632 on the Common Era. And we probably are well aware, those familiar with Islam, that Hu is said to be something of the essence, and Allah is said to contain all the divine names. But in Moon Mansion contemplation, I see divine names as sacred vibrations that are part of our essence and really the root of all existence. The sounds of the letters that create a name are seen in various combinations as building blocks of our very nature and the nature of the world, and indeed the universe. And Ibn Arabi says that the letters are also fundamental to moon mansions. So in this respect, we might understand the divine names as archetypes. Part of the study of cosmology and ontology in general is to seek to explain how and why we exist. And Islam, and specifically Sufism, has a certain way of looking at this. A well-known hadith, often cited, is, "I was a hidden treasure and longed or loved or desired to be known. So I created a creation to which I made myself known. Then they knew me." The word used in Arabic for recitation and contemplation of divine names is zikr, and that means remembrance. And I remember my guide saying to me once, God will remember you. And I thought for a long time, what could that mean? And in Quran chapter 2, verses 152, it says, "Remember me, and I will remember you." So how could I understand God remembering me? What could that feel like? And I found the saying that the opposite of remember is not forget, but dismember. So an additional meaning of zikr, remembering, then, it could be reclaiming parts of our essential being back into our awareness to allow recognition of those parts, parts that we perhaps necessarily cut off from our awareness in order to incarnate. Some Sufi schools recite all the names together, one after the other, as a practice, and some have guides that intuitively tune in to prescribe divine names that are helpful for the state or stage of the student on the path. I nearly said bath, which is very appropriate because the washing and the cleansing is very part of Sufi thought as well. So the reason for a guide is that we often can't see the root of our own need in our own essential being because it's outside of our conscious awareness. You could say super conscious or subconscious. And I often think of prescribed divine names as added vitamins in a diet. Like vitamins, it's not really advisable to take them without the advice of a dietitian, especially some of them, or the advice of a doctor. So in Sufi thought, we're separated, born into the world of opposites in order to come to know the divine. According to Ibn Arabi, and the wonder and beauty, really, to me, is that we each know the divine uniquely. Ibn Arabi in chapter 198 says that we each have a special face towards God. And I understand that to mean that we manifest the names in a unique way too. So, and another Ibn Arabi saying is that because of this special face of each of us, when we consult with others, we collect the honey of opinions. In the case of Moon Mansion Contemplation, the honey of experience of contemplating the sacred names and step levels of creation. And here is the real benefit of sharing in a group. So just a quick look at the names that we contemplate in Moon Mansion Contemplation. I wouldn't expect anyone to really take this on board, but if you're familiar with the names, you might just scan and have a quick look. I just really wanted to say that in our contemplation work, we have the premise that the order of the divine names attributed by Ibn Arabi to the Moon Mansions is a balanced diet, going back to the vitamin analogy. So if the diet is balanced, all the vitamins can potentially be absorbed as long as the body, soul, and mind is able to receive them. So that's the premise we work with. But as mentioned, sometimes there are subconscious blocks, not only to our more Jalali, majestic qualities, but even to our innate beauty as well. That can really be blocked, or subconscious due to our cultural kind of family upbringing, etc., and time. So part of the Moon Mansion contemplation work is to gently remove or see through those veils and barriers that prevent us from fully opening the heart to acknowledge the multifaceted being and experience the richness of it. Jungian and other psychologists employ techniques to communicate with subconscious realm, like dream analysis, watching synchronicities, body work, dialogue, deep listening. And some of us use some or all of those techniques. So I think we'll just go on. I was toying with the idea of perhaps reciting or invoking one of these, but the thing with we'll say a bit about this a bit later, but the thing with the names is that uh, one is more open to them if one can relax and really get into a meditative state. And really, for me, in the middle of presentation, it's not that easy to do that. So, um, uh, well, it's probably best to skip that for now. So, um, why the moon? And uh, what's the background to this? How did I come to this? Um, so I'm a member of the Inayatiyya Sufi order and have been for a number of years. And I'm not sure if you can see this because this is my something's in the way of my screen. I'm not quite sure if you could see it. Um, but so it's a Western Sufi order. Began in the 1900s under the spiritual guidance of Murshid Sufi spiritual teacher Hazrat Inayat Khan, and this is Hazrat Inayat Khan, and it's now headed by his grandson Pirzia Inayat Khan. Yeah, and it's got 7 branches. So there's the inner school. That's where you might have a guide. There's kinship, universal worship, which is the concentration that honors all religions, really. The healing order, Zirat, the knighthood of purity, musicians guild, and that's the 7. And then the Zirat concentration is the one that I was involved in, and it focuses on the cycles of nature, um, uh, as symbols really for the cultivation of the land of the soul. So I was very interested in Ziraat because it views the cycles and symbols of nature as guides to spiritual unfoldment. The way that the seasons revolve, the different ways that seeds are sown and grow, both in nature and when they're cultivated, and how the spiritual worker on the land prepares the soil of the soul for the seed. So for me, even looking at pictures of nature like this, sometimes one can feel one's heart opening. And that would be a lovely place to stay for a while, but unfortunately we have to move on. Um, so the cycles of the moon are specifically highlighted in certain aspects of Ziraat concentration, but not so much was written about them. Ziraat was the last concentration that Murshid Hazrat Inayat Khan introduced before his death. And it's thought that had he lived, more would have been written about this concentration. So I wanted to learn more about the symbolism and place of the moon and how the moon helps the work of caring for spiritual seeds. So, of course, Google always helps, and I did a Google search, and I was led to Moon Mansions, and eventually to Ibn Arabi's Moon Mansion Qualities and Islamic Cosmology. So here again, you can see you can see 1 to 13, and there's 28 as I mentioned before. On this one, you can see the zodiac sign associated. You can see the wazifa, which is badi, and here the verses of the Quran that reference these various attributes. Level of God's self-disclosure, we're calling this, and abjad number is 1, and Arabic letter is alif. Well, alif and hamza, you could say. So the first 3 are seen as a pure mind of God before sort of any creation. And then the next 6 are body, shape, throne, so the footstoolers in this throne, in this section. And then the next 7, you can only see 3 of them here, are the celestial spheres, and they have extra attributes like a prophet, or this one, Rab, that's Moon Mansion 11. It has Abraham, and the planet attributed is Saturn. So each of these down here has got a prophet and a planet, as well as a divine name and a letter and an abjad number. So at some point, this wasn't originally this looking this organized. I really wrote all this out by hand with the names, etc. At first, or on the on the computer, each one individually. But eventually, I found a sort of a ephemeris like this, and an ephemeris, you can see this is the time that the moon is passing through these zodiac signs, and you can see that with each moon mansion there's a specific time that the moon is passing through it. This is in real time, of course. So with Badir here again, we said that it's Aries, and end of last year, I just happened to be showing this section of them. The moon went into that moon mansion at 6:25 in the morning on Tuesday, and moved out of the mansion at about 3:23 on the Wednesday. And same all the way down. We have the times here, exact times, so that helps contemplation really under the premise we work with. And you can see that the times are not always exactly the same. So here Badir is beginning at 6:25 on the Tuesday, and here at the end of the cycle it will start when Moon Mansion 28 finishes, which is about 3:37 on a Monday. So they do vary, and so the ephemeris has to be relevant for each specific day of the year. So what the premise, I've talked about the premise a bit. What is the premise that we work with? So I've said that names and other attributes are easier to tune into under certain conditions. But one of the variables, according to our premise here, is of course that the names and other attributes of the moon mansions are easier to tune into when the moon is in direct relationship with or aligned with the moon mansion. So the multitude of divine names are part of or actually are existence, but just magnified at this time. So we started this contemplation, my friend and I, and then some affirming synchronicities began to happen. And Sorry, excuse me. I've got the knock at the door. Yeah, I think it's all right. It's my friend. She's going on holiday and she wants me to look after her house for her.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, excuse me. So yeah, synchronicities. I don't know what synchronicity that was actually. Looking after someone's house. There we go. Um, so synchronicity, Dr. Eric Winkle, is currently translating the whole of Ibn Arabi's Futuhat al-Makkiyya into English for the first time. That amounts to 37 books, so that it's a long-term project that continue over years. And in 2017, he produced a preprint consultation book that contains chapter 198, the chapter that describes Moon Mansion attributes. And I happened across a copy of this preprint version and bought it. And I've never seen it for sale since. Um, but I believe the book is has now been edited. Uh, that's 3 or 4 years later, and it's likely to be on sale at the end of this year. Um, and so that was the first synchronicity. Then over time, others have engaged in Moon Mansion contemplation with my friend and I, and some have stayed to help develop it for 3 to 4 years now. We currently have 8 people from different parts of the world and different Sufi lineages. Actually, we're not all in Inayatiyya, and 1 or 2 people without who are not in a Sufi school or tariqa at all. Um, so another synchronicity was that Schwabe kindly gave our group free access to the draft version of Chapter 198 so that we could close read it together. And close reading is widely practiced in Ibn Arabi groups, study groups. And then the third one was that mystical astrology, according to Ibn Arabi. I apparently had it on my uh, bookshelf, and I found it. I'd never read it, but of course discovered it was very relevant to understanding chapter 198. And then more recently, the most recent synchronicity, sorry, I can't get this out of the way, as I'm ever watchful for synchronicities, and while preparing for this talk, my interest was piqued by something that somebody posted on Ibn Arabi Society Research Hub. So a member wrote that I found this in a Jungian site while trying to understand lunar consciousness. Quote, the formation of a deeply reflective lunar consciousness is necessary to facilitate deep change within the individual and social systems. A new third thing is being sought that requires compassionate witnessing towards the events that happen in one's life, and only then can one hope to find right action. So I thought that might be a gift for today, but I have to admit I didn't really know what was meant by a third thing, so I looked that up. And in Jung's analytical psychology, the healthy and complete individual must integrate uh, opposing aspects of personality, such as consciousness and unconsciousness, rational and irrational, masculine and feminine, to create the third thing, achieving wholeness and self-realization. The inference is that a deeply reflective approach is necessary to facilitate and maintain inner balance in our time. So you may know that in divine names there are opposites to be honored and balanced, such as Jalal and Jamal, majesty and beauty, Batin and Zahir, inner and outer, Basit and Kabid, expansion and contraction. So this diagram was in Titus Burkhart's book on my bookshelf. And here the qualities are seen rather than in linear form, a hierarchical linear form. They're seen emanating from the center. So again, we go back to Moon Mansion 1. We can see the pen here, first intellect. And I've already spoken a little bit about the first 14 mansions. But in this diagram, of course, you've got the Arabic name, the English transliteration, the number of the Moon Mansion, and the letter. The universal body, etc., which is the cosmological levels, and the zodiacs here, zodiac signs. And we call it a mansion in astrology. If anyone knows astrology, you will recognize a house as part of astrology. So really mansion is another name for house, but in this sense we've got 28 houses, whereas in regular astrology there's 12 related to the zodiac signs. So many of our group initially concentrated on contemplating only the divine name because that was where our previous experience was. But now, after 4 years, the group is lucky enough to have members who are able to help us contemplate the letters as well. And that's known as a specific science in Islam. And we're just at the beginning of this. So we go round from the moon mansions that have got prophets and planets associated with them. Then we come to the moon mansions that have got elements associated with fire, air, water, earth. And then come to metals, plants, animals, angels, jinn, man. And then man, you notice, is not at the end. What is Moon Mansion 28 is what you might see is perfect man. And the name is associated, a divine name associated is Rafi al-Darajat, which is the hierarchical degrees, or raiser through the degrees. So what exactly is a moon mansion? So it's delineated by fixed stars. Each mansion is delineated by fixed stars. A small group of fixed stars known as an asterism. So again, going back to Badia, Moon Mansion 1, the star group is Asharaton. And you may recognize this name here, Pleiades. That's Moon Mansion 3. Divine name Batin. And I must say that this order didn't originate with Ibn Arabi. It's kind of well known of the mansions, but my understanding is that Ibn Arabi added the divine names and the letters to Moon Mansions in this particular order. So this is something just emphasizing really about fixed stars. So we know that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. And it looks as if, from our point of view, that everything is moving, but of course it's the Earth that's moving, and the stars are more or less where they are. They move infinitesimally, but the planets move more, of course. So just going to switch that back on. So then the moon orbits the Earth, and one orbit of the Earth happens in 28 rotation. One orbit of the moon, sorry, around the Earth happens in 28 rotations of the Earth. That's roughly there. There would be other things to say about that, but that's roughly how it is, and that's what the Moon Mansion's based on. So the moon moving round the Earth in the centre, and the attributes depicted on the outside here. So this is a geocentrical view. And again, we've got the pen up here. So in July 21, I created a Google Calendar to avoid the difficulties of manually sending everyone the times, and it was much easier. So, and this is what it looks like. Well, this is today, of course, and Moon Mansion attributed, I mean, high, which is attributed to this Moon Mansion, will start at just after 10:30 UK time this evening. So if I were to click on that, I would come to this, and here you can see in the Moon Mansion calendar, Google Moon Mansion calendar, you can see that if I clicked on this, there would be an audio of the letter pronunciation and a picture of the letter pronunciation here. And then if I clicked on this, it would take me to positions of the heart, which has got the audio of the divine name. Just try and play that for you.
يا حي يا حي يا حي يا حي.
So then in October 21, I collated all the attributes and sent them to someone called Peter, and that's the right spelling. I think he lives in Bulgaria or somewhere like that. He runs a site called AstroSeek, and I asked him if he could produce a Moon Mansion Contemplation calendar, and it's now available. And if you did want to find it, you can find it just simply by Googling Moon Mansion Contemplation, Ibn Arabi Cosmology. But and it doesn't have the letters or abjad numbers on it, but it does have the attributes, pronunciation, and divine names. So we've seen that that one view is from the ineffable center, everything emanating. And we've seen the geocentric view, and you could say, you know, obviously we are each standing on the Earth somewhere, and these are magnified by the moon as it travels towards the magnification travels towards the Earth. So that's the macrocosm. But what about the microcosm? So my understanding of at least hope for what the Moon Mansion Contemplation could offer is a method to consciously pay attention to the continual circumambulation of our core essential self. And this circumambulation of self happens as a way of self-development of the personality in normal everyday life. And that's according to Jung. You might recognize Jung there. But in Moon Mansion Contemplation, we pay attention to the circling that is happening not randomly, but using the lenses of essential elements of and order of our being and creation that Ibn Arabi reveals, and paying attention to all step levels in turn on a cyclical basis may better enable our microcosm to align with Ibn Arabi's mystical experience of inherent order in the macrocosm. So this diagram is not produced as elegantly as I might have done with better computer skills, but I hope it'll be a helpful way to think about the process. So each strand here, you see some are slightly kinked, and some don't quite reach the bottom. So each strand is depicting a divine name. In our daily life, we can see at the base, could be at the base here, and this is us circling our being. So some names in each of us will have been recognized and experienced clearly in our lives. And others we might have an innate access to, but awareness of that maybe have been covered by our circumstances or culture or other conditioning. And yet others may be rudimentary in our lives, waiting to be discovered. Potentially their unique manifestation in us can become more apparent if we pay attention. Insan al-Kamil, here the perfect human being, is one who knows the refined nature of all the divine names and is considered to be, well, an advanced spiritual state gifted to only a few people. But for ordinary people like myself, the aim might be to continually try to be open to recognize the names as they manifest in me and allow space for them to manifest in a clearer and clearer way, while aiming at the same time for balance in this practice. Not ruling out grace, of course, that might reveal something unexpected in our being at any moment. In one way, in Sufi terms, the essential self is not something. I mean, we have something here, but it's a way to be. And in Moon Mansion Contemplation, we're learning how to be aligned with our deeper selves through being open to the possibility that if we take time to listen deeply, we're better able to see and hear the purpose of what comes our way and respond. The Moon Mansion Contemplation method, although it's relatively new, I believe it could be engaged in by anyone whose soul and spirit is drawn to it. Not necessarily part of an established Sufi tradition, but ideally, and in fact, I might even say essentially, supported by a small group of companions, fellow wayfarers on this endless and deeply meaningful way that we call life. So of interest, I believe, is what we have experienced. So I've been asked to say a little bit about that, and I will do that here now. So, but the methods that we've used are recitation and invocation of the divine name, taking note of the day's events and synchronicities, awareness of bodily sensations and emotions and thoughts. And if uncomfortable or unexpected, we may use deep listening techniques. Similar to, you might have heard of the diamond approach or the diamond logos approach, which is kind of an offshoot of that, which is just staying with any experience or emotion and letting it be without comment, inner criticism, and just seeing what comes. And of course, watching our dreams, and more recently the letters, abject numbers, and cosmological attributes, of course, have always been that part of it. But I would say journaling regularly it is very important, because the experiences that come really do go quite quickly out of one's mind, a bit like dreams, if you don't write them down, I've found anyway. And then the sharing of experience with others as well, as I've already mentioned. And what I've noticed about journaling too is what a pleasure to look back on some of the insights that have come, or things that have happened. And they just, sometimes time doesn't seem linear. You look back even 2 years ago and you think, oh yes, that's really relevant to today. So that's one of the benefits too. So some of the things that have happened to people, I'll just tell you a few things. So I think probably I stick to Bardi, as we've been, which is Moon Mansion 1, as we've been. I've been highlighting that quite a bit, and so these are anonymous, of course, but I just call them 1, 2, 3. So person 1, on the day of Bardi, I noticed that I watched a show about initiating a building repair and upgrade. On the day of Bardia, I had a dream about steps to be taken through a learning process. And person 2, on recitation, I felt the sound in the third eye, a sense at the beginning that something had gone wrong, then an answer came. And person 3, on the day of Bardia, I felt a great we togetherness presence, being with my granddaughter, who's creative and makes things. Unexpected things have happened on the day of Bardia that gave a new way of looking at a situation. Person 4, it gives an inkling of what eternal means as an embodied sense. Expansive, awakened, yearning, bringing to life a sculpture that has been lifeless. And person 5, a new cycle starting with Ya Badia starts with a new sense of potential. I've experienced something like the description in the Sufi Book of Life, page 259. Badia, quote, Badia discloses the surprising and sudden flash that places everything in a new focus, close quotes. She says it's like flashes of lightning that reveal a totally new way of seeing things. But for me, paying attention to how synchronicities continually play out in everyday life as guides, with Moon Mansion Contemplation, and the way that the teaching has come through in meditation and daily contemplations is really continually instilling confidence and encouragement on this path. If I had to distill the experience of Moon Mansion Contemplation into one benefit, there have been many, of course, one benefit for me, I would say it's dramatically increased my faith. And I have very little doubt now that the divine wants to remember us, put parts of our being back together in our awareness, each in very individual ways. And this in the container of ordinary daily life, and helped by the intention to pay deep attention to it. So I'm going to play for us now for a few minutes just to finish, well, just one or 2 minutes actually, a lovely piece by Farida Basiman, and then we'll have a discussion.
Nothing is said, nothing is heard, and my heart is dancing with the universe. Nothing is said, nothing is heard, and my heart is dancing with the universe. La ilaha illallah, and my heart is dancing with the universe. La ilaha illallah, and my heart is dancing with the universe. Nothing is said, nothing is heard, and my heart is dancing with the universe. Nothing is said, nothing is heard, and my heart is dancing with the universe. La ilaha illallah, and my heart is dancing with the universe. La ilaha illallah, and my heart is dancing with the universe.
Thank you so much.
Wow. La ilaha illallah. My heart is dancing with the universe. That's Latifa. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you. Absolutely beautiful and thorough presentation of and sharing of such a journey of study and journey of self-reflection and journey of going deeper into one's true self, as you said it. and this the the diagram of rotating around one's true self, and the song in the end, the choice of that dancing with the universe is just such a beautiful expression um, of a deep and intimate practice also. Um, yeah, thank you so much, Latifa. This is absolutely beautiful. And I do want to open the floor for some questions from the people who are here with us. Um, so if you have any questions, you can feel free to write it in the chat, or you can use the reaction button on Zoom. You can raise your hand. Um, and I would like to start with a question myself, as somebody is getting ready for that. Um, so starting this practice, I know you mentioned that you have a group that you're working with. If somebody is here or somebody is watching the replay of this, and maybe they're not necessarily ready yet to commit to working with a group, how would you recommend going about doing this as a self-practice first until maybe getting the courage in order to maybe join a group, or maybe even creating some kind of a support group between themselves? How would you suggest doing this as a practice, like a individual kind of practice?
Mm. Um, well, first of all, I'd really check in if you're used to doing that with yourself to get a sense of whether it might be right, for your heart as well as your mind. Um, it won't be right for everyone, of course. And if you get a yes answer, I you can go to that website, which is AstroSeek, and find the times that there's an ephemeris and calendar there that I mentioned. So you can do that. And if you want to look, you could just experiment with the sound without knowing anything about the divine names, if you were tuned into sound, and to see what came to you. Um, if you wanted to know more about the names before doing that, there are lots of books available. I even believe, and I don't know, wouldn't know where to find it now, but I believe the book Physicians of the Heart PDF is available online. And that is one, well, I find it wonderful, I have to say, but of course there are other books that are very good too. And that kind of gives a psychological angle as well to recitation of the names. Sorry, that's telling me the hour's up. Um, yeah, so do that, but I would say if you have a friend, at least one person to start with, that would be good too. Um, I would love to say that I would be available to actually start another group, but that is not the case at the moment. But I would, if anybody wanted to get together with others and as a support group, I would be very happy to sort of dip in occasionally and give some of our experience. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And I think part of the group support of it is that sharing aspect that you mentioned about the journaling, right? I mean, some of us here probably have experience in journaling and experienced the powerful effect that it has, really. Um, and especially in this kind of practice where the movements are not necessarily just linear movements that you're just going back again to the same point. It's a cyclical kind of movement, even though you're starting from, let's say, the first mansion, al-Bad, or first divine name, al-Badi'a. When you're coming back to it, you're never back to the same spot. You're back again, but at a different different place, right? So that journaling and being able to express to oneself in the form of writing, but also to a group, um, uh, and having that intimate connection with other people also.
Mm.
Um, yeah,
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 yes, for sure.
very powerful.
And I was thinking about also the difference between, having therapy. Of course, many of us on the path, including me, have had spates of therapy, especially with my training as an art therapist. Um, what can happen if to me anyway, if I'm not careful there, is that I go down a kind of rabbit hole. um, and valuable, it can be very valuable, but actually it's kind of one avenue, and here it kind of seems that the focus can be sometimes quite intense to remember to write the journal, but actually the overall experience is less of a um, uh, deep dive all in one go, if you like. Mm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm.
Antoine has a question, I believe, or a comment.
Yeah, both. That was absolutely beautiful and tender and insightful. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm incredibly moved by your presentation. Um, every aspect of it, actually. I love that you gave us the system, these steps that your order goes through. From the one that spoke out the most to me is that idea of universal worship, because I found myself craving that a lot lately. And this is what your presentation felt like to me. It felt like worship, from you speaking about your experience to the music, like what Osama was saying. And I was also like seeing the pattern of, like, back to what you said about your order, because I think one of the ones, there was something about music, a music order right before the contemplation of the cycles of nature,
Yes,
and
Musicians Guild. Yeah.
the Musicians Guild. And what I saw in your presentation is sort of this symmetry, this same circle, this curving back on itself, sort of reflecting these cycles that you study. You see it in the circle, you see it in the moon phases. Even when you and Osama were talking about the journaling, coming back to it, I could see it in my head. This idea of going from house 28 to house 21 again, like coming back to yourself through the journaling and knowing yourself as if for the first time, but seeing you from a different yourself from a different aspect. Um, but all that brought up a question. I wonder if you could give some insight around, or what your feeling is about, between you called it the ineffable center,
Mm,
the relationship between that and this idea that you read about in the quote about the third thing,
mm,
as well as the house 28.
mm.
What's the correlation between those three things? Or how would you describe the correlation?
Mm. Well, of course, I have no absolute experience of the perfect human being, but I have an idea. And I don't know, just what's coming to my mind is that saying about before enlightenment chopping wood and after enlightenment chopping wood. Um, because it's almost like the, 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 the center is here in the moment. That's what I imagine. So it's not even a cone, it's like here, right in this moment. And that's really all I can say. The thing about the Moon Mansion 28 is in positions of the heart. I believe it's there anyway. It describes Rafi as healing through all the stages or steps. So it's like the healing, the putting back together of all those steps. Levels of being.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you.
Wow, that's gorgeous. The healing of all steps. Yeah, what a beautiful description of that state, and even hearing that, it does something into my physiology and my being. It seems the feeling that it emotes is this love gluing everything together in a sense. There's a description that I often go back to. Um, uh, it's one of Khalil Gibran's books of Mary Magdalene when she first encountered Jesus. She described him as a being that every part of himself loving every other part. And that description fits that name very much. This is healing of all steps.
Yeah.
Um,
Wonderful.
Beautiful. Wow, absolutely beautiful. Amazing. Thank you so much, Latifa. Um,
I'd really love to hear from anybody else.
yes, please.
Say hello even. But...
Hmm.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Thank you very much for this beautiful presentation. But my mind couldn't understand it, couldn't reach at that level. I have a little question. So, does all of these things, all of these houses, has there, how to say it? How is it related with the real moon? Because I feel like this is all is psychological. Maybe this is my little understanding, but I feel like this. I feel like it is all psychological and it doesn't have much to do with the real moon. And I feel like moon only is a symbol for the psychological truth.
Symbol for the psychological truth. Interesting. So so the main thing you were saying, sorry, I've just got caught on the symbol for the psychological truth there. I'm just wondering how that could be thought about. But I think like anything of reality, when you say real, do you mean real that you can touch, or Ibn Arabi has a term real meaning that what everything actually is, part of the divine, etc. Do you?
Mystics have a very broad sense of real. I
Yes.
mean, the normal human being real, like
Real,
things we can touch.
Yes. Yes. Yes, it can be looked at like that because there are certain stars. There is the moon, of course. There is the universe, and you can have that in your mind, and you can any one of us can use if you I don't know if you're familiar with Sufi thought, but in Sufi thought the realm of the imagination is very important, and any one of us can use that, and so you can use that to imagine the connection, if you like. If I don't know if this helps at all, but if you don't, one has to sort of I I was on with the Sufi order for a long time before I actually grasped any of it myself,
Mhm.
intellectually, I mean, or cognitively. Um, so it's not surprising that it's a big jump to take in to adopt any kind of map, really. You can see it as a map, is one thing of where you might want to head, or where you are heading. So when you say um, anything, we all have a map, or used to have maps to find our way, but the map is not the territory. I think
Mhm.
that's you can say that for any kind
Mhm.
of formulation of ideas or anything. Even in the psychological world, there's so many different approaches, aren't there? There's cognitive therapy and Jungian analysis and all kinds of different ways, all totally valid. Yeah.
Mm. One of the things, maybe this is a comment to also what Mert has brought up, is that the mansions or the houses, as you mentioned, Mert, the moon from our perspective, from Osama, from Mert, standing here and looking at the moon as it passes through the sky, it is passing through these mansions in relationship to the fixed stars that are behind the moon.
Mm,
So from this perspective, real, if we want to use that word, it
mm,
is happening in real world, right? Now, the relationship as far as how I get to engage or what are the certain maybe subtle energies that are being exchanged or that are being transmitted through this movement, maybe that's where the symbolism comes in and the imagination, the realm of imagination can come in. And now I'm being receptive to interact with this movement in a way that I can start to feel these sensations, kind of like part of the practice that Latifa that you spoke about towards the end. Part of that contemplation practice is feeling the sensation, really being in the body and knowing, okay, what are the senses? What am I sensing right now? What am I feeling right now? What emotions are being brought up? What are my thoughts? What's happening in the thought realm? So really like a scan that's taking place in relation to a quote unquote something that's visible, real, that is happening that I'm engaging with. That's the way that I try to make sense out of it also. Um, because I've had similar question when I first got introduced to this practice as far as like, wait a second, is this really happening? Like, is this movement? And it is, right? Like, as far as that word real.
mm.
Yes.
Yeah, hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah, thank you. That's helpful. And the other thing that I think just to highlight really about the moon is, of course, we do know that it has effects with the tides and animals, especially marine animals, sort of um, have their cycles to do with the moon as well. So it does have effect
Yeah,
physically.
yeah, exactly. We have Kyle has a question, and I just want to read a comment that David shared also that he David says, I've heard it said that the moon is a symbol of passive aspect of the mind and the sun as the active aspect of the mind. I've also seen this relationship in reverse. And Paul shares, and vice versa, the moon is the sun of the sun. Um, so these are comments that David and Paul are sharing.
Yes. Yeah,
I
different.
would,
I beg your pardon. Go on.
okay. Latifa, thank you for your presentation. I appreciate it. It's been years since I've been in a symposium where somebody attempted to introduce the meditation aspects of the mansions of the moon. I think the simplest way to understand this is its rhythms, right? The most basic rhythm we have as a microcosm is our breathing, and our and through our breathing, we can become aware of the various tides of emotion, which are can correlate. Basically, we're creating a map, and what you're given, but with Ibn Arabi and other traditions that deal with this style of these cosmological maps, is that they're very intricate. They're based on communities of people who have attempted to correlate uh, these insights, and and they're also very poetic. They can be very poetic, and of course, I mean poetic in the sense of creation or making, which is the core meaning of poetic. It's created, and of course, there was bringing up the letters and the numbers. You're talking about the basis of our languages, and that our languages are intricately tied up again with these rhythms. So, but as far as meditation goes, keep it simple, and also keep it near at heart. And breathing is the first one and the easiest one that you can be aware of. If you're aware of eventual versions of breathing, you will just see that it correlates to the rhythms of your heart, and then going out into the macrocosm, or at least I wouldn't actually call it the full macrocosm, but going out these individual physical rhythms that are, this is where we dance, this is where we get our sense of rhythm from. When you start dealing with issues about the month, that takes time, takes quite a bit of time. And the other thing is, we live in cities. We don't see the moon that much unless we make an effort of it. And it really makes sense to go out there and actually look at the moon, and to the degree that you can see it nightly, and become aware of its trajectory and becoming aware if it's moving towards, if it's waning or waxing. Just knowing that, you can start seeing a correlation between some of your own emotional fluctuations. But as a mystic, it's noise, it's not music. And where I would go for the music of the essential is not by paying attention to the rhythms of nature, though some people obviously do. This is the way they get. This is their connection to the divine. But I would suggest that you have to start with your own root awareness. Uh, on another level, completely, the mansions of the moons and these correlations go back to the Paleolithic, Stonehenge, Neolithic, agricultural cycles, pre-writing, early civilizations this is where this stuff was probably originally invented. Uh, Ibn Arabi is, as was pointed out, is not unique in these correlations. There's correlations in the tantric works, the Guhya Samaja Tantra being the one that's coming to mind, but it's not the only major tantra that deals with again
Yeah.
astrological
Thank you,
correlations.
Paul. That's amazing. And
And
that's the beauty about these
yeah,
traditions is that
and also just one other reference, which is to the Abhinav Gupta's Tantra Loka has several of the books in the Tantra Loka deal specifically with this thing, and you'd find them interesting to correlate if that's where your mind takes you.
yeah, yeah. And it's great points that you've shared also as far as, maybe something like this can be when practiced with intention and aim, can be a good motivator to go outside, leave the city for once in a while, that's what, right, the mystics have been doing for ages, and get in touch with nature, this rhythm, this contemplation, and knock on these doors that are all the doors of the divine, right? As mystics, um, and these practices, I believe, can be one of those doors that one can knock on and get in touch with the rhythms of nature that are happening, and how internally the breath, all of these aspects that you spoke about, finding that connection and relaxing more and more into one's being. Um, it's amazing. Thank you so much, Paul. I want to make sure also that Kyle, I know Kyle had you had his hand up. Um, please jump
Yes.
in.
Yes, thank you, Osama. Hi, Latifa. Thank you so much for the conversation set up to this point. Just a quick question and then a comment following. Basically, what you're describing are like mantras that, like practically speaking, mantras that we could practice at these certain times. Is that correct? Am I following correctly?
Yes, yes, they're in Islam that or Sufi that practice. They're called wazifa, but and they are divine names, but it's similar, very similar to concept to mantras. Yeah.
So from my background, I've studied a lot in the past few years in like Hinduism and um, a lot of that lineage of thought, um, specifically Shiva. So uh, it seems to me like, and this goes back to what you were saying, Mert, like what is reality and what are we here? And it seems like we are energy beings. We are beings of energy. And, like you said, at the moment of conception, there's a flash of light. And so often we get caught up in our thought and get caught up in our minds. And we are constantly bombarded with all these thought messages in the media and in entertainment and all these things that are pulling away our energy and sucking away our energy. And, especially our thoughts just burn energy and we become beings of thought instead of beings of energy. And so practices like this or mantra goes back to what you're saying of it being like a bath, like a sound bath. And so when we're doing this, we're consecrating our bodies, we're making a possibility for a new direction and a new reality. And and that's one way to break free from our thoughts and our cycles that we our same stories that we keep telling ourselves. And this is just a wonderful opportunity to be here with you all. So thank you, Latifa, for leading this.
It's beautiful. Thank you, Kyle.
Amazing. Wow. Thank you.
I, w-
Yes, Antoine.
I just wanted to take a minute to read one of the comments that Nisrin, if I pronounced it correctly, left. She says, unfortunately, I have to leave you. Thank you so much, Latifa, for presentation. It's a totally new concept for me. I will investigate more on this beautiful subject, as personally, I've always been drawn to contemplate the moon through its phases, and I find it amazing how it's connected to different divine names. Thank you also to the team for organizing this call. Salams.
Amazing. Thank you for reading that, Antoine. Awesome. Well, if there aren't any more comments or questions, I know we're definitely over the hour. We're close to 2 hours, but in great company, time is just a construct, I guess.
Mm.
Um, thank you all for joining. Um, oh, we have a comment from Afsha Malik. She says, thank you, Latifa, for a fascinating presentation. I would love to learn more. I would love to explore more on the moon, the womb, and the woman. Our disconnection with these rhythms have had profound effects on our health on all levels. Thank you, Sam, for organizing this. Look forward to the next one. Amazing. Thank you so much, Afsha. Wow. Such um Yeah, uh, great correlation. The moon, the womb, and the woman. Whoa, that should be like a title of a of some kind of talk or something like that. Maybe Elsha can lead something like that. Um, yes, absolutely. Wow, fascinating. And yeah, for after this call, we will. Well, not today, probably sometime next week, I will send an email with this recording and some PDFs, kind of maybe some of what Latifa was sharing as far as the diagrams um, and the website that you can follow the Moon Mansions and whatnot. So you'll get an email with all of the that stuff afterwards. But um, Actually, yeah, that's interesting. The moon, the womb, and the woman. Wow, that's beautiful. That's really beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Latifa, again for sharing your wisdom with us, and thank you everybody for chiming in and being present with us here today. Um, we'll stay in touch, God willing. I love you all. We'll see you soon.